I wanted to share with you some of the tips that helped me out while trying to learn Blender. If you've been thinking about getting into Blender, or if you come from Cinema 4D and want to try out a new software, these are definitely going to help you out. I've started Blender 30 days ago, and I know that because if you go onto my site in the Blender project file library page, I've been doing a project every day. So right now I'm at 30 projects, and these are open source projects that you can download and dissect, get into the node system and learn a little bit more about how I was able to make these. And of course, if you want even more behind the scene videos and tutorial like this one, I would highly consider to take a look at my Patreon. I currently have a series there, my behind the scene Blender series, where I dig inside of each and every project file that I've been releasing so far, so since the first day that I started this, and I talk about my node system, the texturing, the lighting, and I give a lot more tips. This is my starting Blender file. So as you can see, there are no cubes and I already have everything that I want to have on my starting setup scene. So I'm gonna go here inside of my render settings, and as you can see, everything is already as I want. So these are my render settings. As you can see here, my render, the max sample is already set up, the denoise is set up, and I have a couple of options like fast GI approximation to kind of speed up the rendering, simplify. I have the compositor, everything is set to GPU, and of course my color management, so I'm using AGX. A couple of other things that I have in my preference is that I am using the new Vulkan backend. So this is the 4.5 update. So how can you make your own startup file? So you can pretty much set up everything you want to and then get inside of the file, default, and save startup file. So that helped me out a lot because I'm opening Blender every single day, and I just had to have some stuff already set up for me. My resolution is already there. If I pop in a camera, you will see that my aspect ratio is as I want. So the first tip is to create your own starting file in Blender. There's a couple of different options for the UI. As you can see here, you can move around your different windows, and if you go in any corner of those windows, you will see an X, an arrow, and if you click it, you will create another window. And the thing that I love about Blender is that you can go into any tab that you want. So let's say here that I want the compositor tab for my camera and my render. I can have that. Here I can have another viewport. So if you want, you can render this. It will render your object, and here you can still play around the scene. I love the way this works. And for now, I'm just going to close this one. So I've always been a little bit afraid about the UI in Blender, but actually it's very smart. It's very easy to get into once you kind of know what's happening right with the tab system. The downside is that Blender utilizes a lot of shortcuts, and I'm not a big fan of shortcuts. I only know one shortcut so far in Blender, and that's the Shift A to be able to open up the node search tab. But that's pretty much it, right? Let's talk a little bit about the viewport option, because there's a lot of things that I had to search on my own on how to apply them and how to look for them as well. And something that I love about Blender is the cavity feature in the viewport. As you can see here, all of my edges have kind of this bevel look, right? And to be able to achieve that, all you have to do is inside of the viewport shading, you can go to the arrow here, and you will have down an option for the cavity feature, and you can actually increase that, and this will kind of help figure out the edges. It's kind of the same wireframe that we used to have in Cinema 4D, but here it's actually looking nice. And you can also customize the color of your object, but I like to keep it as a simple object. So the cavity option is really a nice eye candy feature that I just love to use. In Cinema 4D, we have a lot of modifier that we can apply directly in the layer menu. So if you want to apply something, you just drag and drop it on top of it. And from there, you can simply play around the modifiers and the options of the modifier. But in Blender, it's a little bit different. So you need to have your object in the scene, and from there go to the modifier tab and click on add modifier. So in this case, I'm going to add a decimate option, and the decimate will kind of remesh my sphere here. And after that, you can add on top of that a couple more modifiers. So in this case, I'm going to go with a wireframe. We have something like that. And I'm going to add another one, a subdivision surface, and I'm going to subdivide this. But as you can see now, it's not smooth at all. So to smooth this, I'm going to try right-clicking on the object and shade smooth, and this kind of fixed the issues. Of course, there's a couple of ways you can do that. Simply go inside of your geometry node tab with having the sphere selected, create new, and from there you can get a smooth, and this will smooth out the mesh as well. So there's a couple of ways to do this, but what I understand is that modifiers cannot be used inside of the geometry node, so you will have to figure out, you know, which comes first. So yeah, this is kind of how the modifiers tab works. Of course, you can change that around, you can move this up and down. So in this case, the set smooth that I added in the geometry node doesn't really care where it's set up. It's always going to give me the same output, even if I put this in the middle. So yeah, and since we are inside of the geometry node, I wanted to show you how wonderful the geometry node is, right? So right now I am currently working on my own plugin, which is the Mofractile. It's a plugin that I had in Cinema 4D, but now I am remaking it inside of Blender. And as you can see here in my modifiers tab, I already created a lot of different sliders and options to be able to create this type of extrusion. So this is kind of a look of how I was able to create the node system. And yeah, so I can't wait to talk about this once it's done. But the geometry node in Blender is just awesome, very easy to use. Another thing that I want to share with you is the light positioning, right? So I'm going to add an area light, and as you can see, it is down here. So I'm going to take it up. What I want to do is be able to rotate this light around my object, and to be able to do that, you actually have to go inside of the arrow, add an empty arrows, and you will have now an arrow. And if you select the empty and arrow together, so while using shift, I'm going to click shift and these two, right click in the scene, parent, object, you will end up parenting your area light to the empty, and from there you can simply take your rotate tool and rotate your light around your scene. So if you have a camera, you know, it's a lot more useful to be able to rotate your empty and be able to see the changes of your lighting setup. In Cinema 4D, you could just create a null object and just drag the light inside of the null object. In this case, you actually need to select both of these, right click and parent your object together. Another feature that I found kind of on my own was the ability to see gloom and glare inside of the viewport rendering. So at first I tried to search why I wasn't able to see my glare inside of the render view, and I couldn't really find anything until I figured out that all you need to do is go inside of your arrow and set the compositor to always And in this case, it will actually show you what you have inside of your compositor. So the compositor is where you can do some post. In this case, I'm using the glare option, and now you can actually see how this affects our scene. We can change the bloom, the strength, saturation, and the size as well. I'm really glad I found this because I used to do test renders to be able to see how the glare is affecting my scene. Having this as always is actually a lifesaver when it comes to adding more elements inside of your compositor. Another tip that I want to share with you is the sky texture. So I wanted to find a way to add some skies, but I wasn't really sure how to achieve that. You do have a light, a sun light in the scene, right, that you can add. But when it comes to the sky, you actually need to come inside of your world here and go to the color and select the sky texture. And you will have all of your options here, so you can actually change the sun size, the sun intensity, the sun elevation, and this will change around the sky. You can also change some sky type. So we don't actually need the sun. We actually have it right here. And yeah, and to access this node system inside of the geometry node, you can actually go to the shader editor and go to the object and set this to world. And now, as you can see, we have our background and the sky texture. And another thing you can do is if you select some noise texture, you can add noise. And of course, if you want to change the color of that noise, you can add a color ramp, and now you will have this kind of noise as a sky. So yeah, that's pretty great stuff. Another very useful composition tip is the camera guideline. So this is something that we have in almost all software, but in Blender, I kind of had to search around all of the different camera settings to be able to find this. So in this case, to be able to enable the lines, you need to go to the viewport display, and here you will have a composition guide. And in this case, you can add a lot of guidelines, right, to be able to center your camera. Of course, we don't see anything because the lines are very dark. So I'm going to change here to my clay render, and as you can see, here are all the lines. The only downside is that in Blender, for some reason, you cannot actively change how these look. So I would love to have an option to change the color or even the thickness of the line, but we don't have that yet. And yeah, I wanted to share that with you. And of course, the most important tip that I have to give you is, of course, my everyday project file. So these files are open source. You can download them for free. You can use them as you want. I'm creating this for myself. First of all, this is kind of my research that I like to do. I love to, get inside of different system and learn a little bit more about them. And I am sharing my result and the files. When I don't really know what to create, I just love to be able to download some of these files and start from somewhere. And even now, in Blender, I do go sometimes inside of my Cinema 4D project file library to download some of the textures that I've already made. So in this case, I did some landscape inside of Blender, and I reused some of the texture that I had for some of these files. So yeah, have that in mind. I've got a lot of content on my site that you can use freely. And if you want more insight, be sure to check out my Patreon. And yeah, if you want to be a part of the community, be sure to support me there. Otherwise, something you can do is check out my products. I do create a lot of products for designers. So in this case, I have a lot of grayscale maps that you can use in pretty much any software if you want to apply some different type of patterns, I've got you covered. I've got a lot of things. I'm also sharing some landscape build landscape maps that you can also use inside of Blender, and of course a lot of pre-made 3D assets. And that's pretty much it for this video. Hopefully this video helped you out in getting started inside of Blender. Be sure to follow my behind the scene Blender series on Patreon to get a feel of every project files that I've been making since the first day. And other than that, I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.